loafing around the Christmas tree in a field of mud and ice. Garden sheds with tracks for skis, oh, they're looking real precise. Drones are high, the vibe's not right, they're circling in the air. Low steps up, but what's that sight? Boom, now it's everywhere. You will get a fiery, smoky feeling when the shrapnel starts revealing. Explosions bright, oh what a sight. The loaf's turned into kindling tonight. Loafing around the Christmas tree with fences for extra flair. Its aluminum coat won't save the spree, it's a rolling Christmas dare. FPVs bring hugs from the sky with the soft and cozy boom. One loaf down, the tree looks fine, but there's another entering soon. You will get a fiery, smoky feeling when the fireworks start dealing. Tank turrets fly, they reach the sky. Loafs can't seem to say goodbye. Oh, the snow is red tonight. From loafs that took their chance with zero armor and bad design, they led a deadly dance. Loafing around the Christmas tree, there are no gifts, just burning steel. Ukraine's drones are setting them free from a war they'll never heal. So if you're loafing near that tree, expect some sparks for all to see. Welcome to the perpetual show. Where the loaves go, we've got flow. Oh yeah. Driving through the fields of green, oh so bright. With a loaf by your side, everything feels right. Loafing through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The loaf's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, the sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love. Through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The love's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love.
Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave, on behalf of every father and every mother, wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly.
the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent broadcast for you today. I'll be presenting the news as I always do. That will be followed by the report from German aid to Ukraine. And then we have a great guest today. We're going to have Mr. Gesh talk a little bit about his research methods and how open source analysts track Russian units on different battlefields. First, of course, I need to, as I always do, request humbly that you please do hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. All that stuff really helps us. YouTube doesn't like when we explain to you what's going on in Ukraine. It's not advertiser friendly, at least. And it really helps us when you guys promote our work, because it helps fight against that kind of automatic bias that YouTube has put in place against our content. So really, really appreciate that. Also, please do check out our Twitter account, our Blue Sky account. Those are the main two social media platforms we post on. We do post updates there occasionally. We also circulate people's research and stuff that way. And then I think probably the best way to keep tabs on all the projects and stuff we do, aside from, of course, like tuning into the stream every week, Sunday at 2100 Kyiv time, is to go to the website, which is Tochnyi.info. There's a lot of people who've been doing a lot of really hard work to keep the website up and running, just the logistics of it. And then also, of course, we have a lot of excellent research by a lot of excellent researchers there doing open source work. So definitely check out the website, Tochnyi.info. A lot of cool maps, a lot of cool information. And really respect all the work my colleagues do. So please do all that stuff I just said so that you can help promote their work, because I think what they're doing is really awesome. And I think without any further delay, I will now jump right into the news. These are the main headlines as of January 12th, 2025. Starting with operational news. Drones targeted the Tenneco oil refinery in Tatarstan, Russia on Saturday. Reports of the incident emerged from Russian media outlet Astra, with additional confirmation provided by Andriy Kovalenko, leader of Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation, through a message on Telegram. Astra indicated that workers at the refinery, located in Nizhnekamsk, were evacuated following a perceived drone threat. Videos circulated on social media appeared to show smoke rising from the site, which is among the largest and most advanced oil refineries in Russia. Heightened security measures were also evident as an emergency protocol was initiated at Nizhnekamsk airport before the attack. Kovalenko stated that drones successfully struck the Tenneco facility that handles over 16 million tons of oil processing for Russia annually. On the night of January 10th, Ukrainian drones carried out attacks on multiple regions in Russia, leading to significant fires in the Leningrad and Rostov oblasts, as reported by local officials and independent Russian media outlets. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed that its air defense systems intercepted 40 Ukrainian drones during the night. In Leningrad Oblast, a major fire erupted in the town of Gatchina, located 45 kilometers southwest of St. Petersburg. The blaze was reported to have started in an industrial area and was reported on by Astra, which cited eyewitness accounts. The site of the fire included various facilities, such as a company specializing in panel coatings and paints, a food processing plant, and a building materials factory. State media TASS added that an acetone plant was also involved. The fire spanned approximately 1,900 square meters, but the Russian Emergency Situations Ministry stated that no injuries had been reported. Rostov Oblast also experienced a large fire attributed to a drone strike. Near Rostov City, flames engulfed an industrial production facility covering 2,000 square meters, according to the state-controlled media RIA Novosti. Astra also reported that one attack hit near a hospital in the village of Chaltir, where the regional governor, Vasily Golubev, confirmed that a fire had damaged a residential building. A second group of Ukrainians has started training in Poland as part of the Ukrainian Legion, with women participating in the unit for the first time, as announced by Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. The majority of new volunteers in the Ukrainian Legion are Ukrainians currently living in Poland, but the unit also includes citizens from other European countries such as Denmark, Czechia, Germany, and Lithuania. Women have also joined the group, taking on roles in both medicine and communications. According to the Defense Ministry, approximately 1,300 applications for the service has been submitted to the Legion's recruitment center. Lieutenant Colonel Petro Horkusha, the unit's deputy commander, noted that more recruits have enlisted compared to November, indicating increased trust in the initiative. He emphasized that those joining are motivated individuals who understand the significance of their decision. After signing contracts, the volunteers traveled to a Polish Armed Forces training center to begin basic military training. The program, conducted by Polish instructors, incorporates modern NATO weaponry and training techniques. On January 4th, Ukraine's State Registry of Civil Status Acts resumed operations, enabling officials to once again register key events such as births, marriages, and other civil records in the unified database. The Ministry of Justice announced the restoration following a significant cyber attack I reported on 2 weeks ago, attributed to Russia, that disrupted several state registries. The ministry confirmed that offices handling civil status registrations have regained the ability to input data on events, including births, marriages, divorces, name changes, and deaths into their database. Paper documents collected during the outage remain valid, while their digital versions are being systematically uploaded into the system. The ministry also noted that starting the following day, data sharing with other state agencies, including the State Tax Service, Pension Fund, and Ministry of Defense, would resume. Online services through the DIA platform, such as applications for military draft postponements for parents with 3 or more children under 18, would also be reinstated, ensuring a seamless data access for relevant agencies. So far, this marks the 4th registry from the hack to be restored. The previous ones include the Unified Registry for Powers of Attorney, the Inheritance Registry, and the Registry of Special Notary Templates. These efforts are part of the recovery plan implemented after the hack occurred on December 19th. The Security Service of Ukraine is actively investigating the incident, while Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice Olha Stefanishina assured citizens that robust measures had safeguarded the country's digital records from any permanent damage. The Russian defense company Vysokopotrechnye Kompleksu, GIS, has supplied a new batch of Depesha ground robotic systems to the military. The announcement was made through Rostec, a Russian state corporation. Details about the specific model and quantity of units delivered were not disclosed, but the systems have been previously deployed in their invasion of Ukraine, where they have been used as ground-based kamikaze drones. The Depesha system, developed by Signal Research Institute, was initially unveiled in 2024 during their defense forum. Built on a 4-wheel drive chassis, the platform is capable of various roles, including logistics support, casualty evacuation, and serving as an armed drone with a combat module. It can transport payloads of 200 kilograms, making it adaptable to a range of operational needs. At its debut, different configurations of the system were showcased. One featured an ambulance setup equipped with a stretcher for evacuating injured personnel, while another demonstrated a sapper complex outfitted with launchers for engineered munitions designed for remote mining operations. The platform's design includes independent suspension and an electric motor for each wheel, which enhances its mobility and off-road performance. The Unmanned Ground Vehicle, or UGV, can traverse uneven terrain at speeds of around 30 km per hour. However, key specifications such as its operational range, maximum radius, and endurance have not been disclosed. Himera, a Ukrainian company specializing in secure communication systems, has unveiled a new communication ecosystem designed for its G1 Pro tactical radios. The announcement was shared on all the company's social media and highlights technological advancements aimed at enhancing secure battlefield communication. The ecosystem introduces 3 key components: the B1 network extender, the E1 internet extender, and the R1 repeater, which can transmit radio communications via the internet. The devices were demonstrated and tested alongside the G1 Pro radios under electronic warfare conditions at the Ukrainian Armed Forces training grounds. During the testing, Himera noted that the G1 Pro radios remained undetected and unaffected by EW equipment. The inclusion of a B1 extender attached to a drone improved communication performance even in the presence of EW interference. The radios also demonstrated seamless functionality while installed in armored vehicles, transmitting both voice and data. Himera's G1 Pro is a tactical radio system engineered for secure communications within Ukraine's defense forces. Equipped with advanced features, including pseudo-random frequency hopping and AES-256 encryption, the radios ensure secure transmissions that cannot be intercepted or decoded. They also support a network similar to MANET, allowing continuous data delivery even without direct connections between devices. All stations in the network maintain encrypted communication, mirroring the security of direct links. The radios are designed to transmit both voice and digital data. Their user-friendly interface supports integration with Android devices, allowing for simple configuration via Bluetooth without requiring specialized software knowledge. Up next, we have economy and aid. Ukraine has received 3 billion euros from the European Union, marking the first installment of a loan package supported by income generated from frozen Russian assets. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal confirmed the development on January 10th, noting that the funds were delivered through the Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration Initiative, a program established by G7 nations to provide Ukraine with a $50 billion loan, of which the EU has committed approximately $20 billion. Shmyhal emphasized that the funding represents the implementation of the Russia will pay principle, aiming to reinforce Ukraine's financial stability for 2025. The funds come from the profits of Russian assets frozen by Western nations, which amount to roughly $300 billion globally. However, only the annual income generated from the assets, estimated at around $3.2 billion can be accessed for use. These revenues will underpin the $50 billion loan for Ukraine, while the bulk of the frozen assets remain untouchable, primarily within European countries. Canadian Minister of National Defence Bill Blair announced a military aid package worth $440 million Canadian dollars for Ukraine during the 25th Ukraine Defence Contract Group meeting held in the Ramstein format. This meeting took place on December 9th at Germany's Ramstein Air Base and marked the first gathering since September. The aid package includes $200 million Canadian dollars allocated to the Czech initiative for the procurement of delivery of large-caliber ammunition, which is still one of Ukraine's top priorities. This builds on the $53 million contributed earlier, which provided around 11,500 rounds of large-caliber ammunition. An additional $50 million is earmarked for purchasing various calibers of ammunition from Canadian industries. Canada has also committed 100 million Canadian to the Danish model, a program aimed at supporting the production of military drones by Ukraine's defense industry. Furthermore, 30 million Canadian dollars has been designated for winter gear, including sleeping bags, winter boots, and thermal layers, part of which was delivered to Ukraine in December of 2024. Another 64 million has been allocated for high-resolution drone cameras, which were delivered in November and December. The announcement is part of a $500 million in additional military assistance that was pledged at 2024 at the NATO summit, and a $1.6 billion budget outlined in Canada's 2024 budget. The total value of Canadian military aid to Ukraine since the onset of the full-scale invasion has reached 4.5 billion Canadian dollars. Blair also provided updates on previous commitments, noting that Canada had delivered approximately 1,300 CRV-7 rocket warheads in December of 2024, following the delivery of over 2,000 rocket motors in September. The first armored combat support vehicles arrived in the fall of 2024, with all associated training completed, and an additional 40 vehicles are scheduled for delivery between May and December of 2025. The Biden administration has announced the final $500 million military aid package to Ukraine. It was announced by outgoing U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at the Ramstein summit and includes air defense missiles and equipment for F-16 fighter jets. The Biden administration has left nearly $4 billion in unspent aid for Ukraine from a package approved by Congress in April. The remaining amount will be transferred to the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump, where it will remain accessible under the Presidential Drawdown Authority. Deputy spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense, Sabrina Singh, addressed the matter during a briefing, stating that the unused funds will be available for the next administration to allocate toward Ukraine. The announcement followed inquiries from journalists regarding the total aid left for Ukraine after the recent military assistance package was announced earlier in the week. Japan has introduced a new wave of sanctions targeting individuals and organizations in response to Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The measures were reported by the Japan Times and involve a set of asset freezes and export restrictions aimed at limiting Russia's ability to circumvent existing sanctions. Under Japan's foreign exchange and foreign trade law, 33 organizations and 12 individuals, including one North Korean national, are now subject to asset freezes. Export bans were extended to 53 organizations across various nations, including Russia and China. And starting on January 23rd, Japan will prohibit the export of an additional 335 items to Russia, such as small motorcycles and components for specialized vehicles like cranes. These actions are said to be part of Japan's effort to address North Korea's support for Russia and to counteract attempts by Russia to evade sanctions through third-party countries. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi emphasized during a press conference that the measures align with global initiatives to promote peace. The US and UK government have jointly introduced sanctions targeting Russian energy companies Gazprom Neft and PJSC Surgutneftgaz. According to a press release cited by European Pravda, the companies collectively produce over 1 million barrels of oil daily, generating an estimated $23 billion annually at current market rates. Their profits are viewed as a direct source of funding for Russia's military actions in Ukraine. The sanctions are part of the US and UK strategy to disrupt Russia's revenue streams from energy exports, which play a crucial role in sustaining Russia's war efforts. Foreign Secretary David Lammy emphasized that oil revenues are central to Russia's war economy and reaffirmed the UK's commitment to preventing these profits from endangering Ukrainian lives and global security. The U.S. Department of Treasury has imposed sanctions on Antal Rogan, a high-ranking official in Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's administration, signaling a further decline in U.S.-Hungarian relations since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Rogan, who serves as minister in charge of the Cabinet Office, has been accused of orchestrating corruption schemes across multiple sectors of Hungary's economy. The outgoing ambassador to Hungary, David Pressman, described Rogan as the primary architect of Hungary's corruption system. The Hungarian foreign minister dismissed the sanctions as, quote, personal revenge by the outgoing administration. The timing of the sanctions coincides with growing international concerns over corruption and governance in Hungary, which Transparency International ranked as the European Union's most corrupt member state in its 2023 Corruption Perceptions Index. The EU has already withheld funding from Hungary due to rule of law violations, including issues related to public procurement and conflicts of interest. Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized government officials on Thursday for their inadequate response to what he described as one of the most severe environmental crises the country has faced in recent years. Speaking during his first cabinet meeting of the year, Putin emphasized that the efforts to address the situation were insufficient and demanded stronger action to mitigate the disaster. To accelerate the response, Putin ordered the establishment of a rapid response center focused on halting the leaks and improving cleanup efforts. Kurenkov informed the cabinet that a specialized oil removal system had been transported from St. Petersburg and was ready for deployment. Putin also praised volunteers for their work in cleaning oil from affected beaches and urged government officials to show the same level of commitment. He called on authorities to address technical, financial, and technological issues tied to the disaster and to create a comprehensive plan to mitigate environmental damage. All this to say, this looks like a large-scale coordinated media event put on by the Kremlin to help insulate Putin from the effects and mismanagement of the disaster. And finally, we have international relations. The Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine has extended the deadline for military personnel to voluntarily return to service after their first unauthorized absence, or AWOL, until March 1st. The extension is part of a draft law amending the legislation on military duty and service, specifically addressing the enrollment of citizens to the military registry and their medical examinations during basic training. The amendment was supported by 298 parliament members and modifies the, quote, transitional provision section concerning AWOL cases. Previously, military personnel who went AWOL for the first time were allowed to return to their units voluntarily without facing criminal charges, with the deadline initially set for January 1, 2025. The new decision shortens the period, requiring voluntary returns to March 1st to avoid legal consequences. The original law, adopted in November of 2024, aimed to provide a chance for those who deserted or left their posts to rejoin the military without penalties. The recent extension reflects a continued effort to address issues related to personnel retention and service obligations during the war. On January 9th, the Armenian government approved a draft law to initiate the process of joining the European Union, marking a significant shift in its foreign policy. The decision reflects Armenia's move toward closer ties with Western nations, a course that has been developing since 2023. Nearly a year earlier, the Speaker of Armenia's parliament proposed the idea of EU membership, which was later supported by Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, who confirmed that the country was exploring the submission of an EU membership application. Armenia's pursuit of EU membership is a sovereign decision, but has sparked reactions from Moscow, given its long-standing ties with Russia. Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson for Russian President Vladimir Putin, commented that while the decision is Armenia's right, it may not be compatible with its membership in the Eurasian Economic Union, which includes Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. Peskov highlighted the perceived benefits of Armenia's membership in that union. The draft law, once approved by the Armenian government, will be sent to parliament for further consideration. Foreign Minister Mirzoyan described recent relations between Armenia and the EU as dynamic and intensive and signaled a growing alignment with European policies. However, the Prime Minister emphasized that any decision to join the EU would require approval through a national referendum. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko has declined to invite a mission from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE, to monitor the country's upcoming presidential election on January 26th. The decision, announced by the OSCE on January 9th, has drawn criticism for undermining international election standards. Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus for 3 decades, is seeking a 7th term. The last presidential election in 2020, widely regarded as fraudulent, sparked mass protests and a violent government crackdown on dissent. The OSCE's Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights expressed disappointment over the lack of transparency, describing the move as a breach of Belarus's international commitments. An official with the OSCE criticized the decision, highlighting that it denies Belarusian citizens an independent assessment of their electoral process and demonstrates the regime's disregard for commitments and democratic norms. Despite being excluded from observing the elections, the OSCE stated that it continues to monitor developments in Belarus. And finally, the Finnish government announced plans to maintain the closure of its border with Russia and extend a controversial law allowing border guards to deny entry to asylum seekers under specific conditions. The Act on Temporary Measures to Combat Instrumentalized Migration, initially introduced in July of 2024, was enacted in response to a spike in asylum seekers arriving at Finland's eastern border with Russia in 2023. Helsinki accused Russia of orchestrating the influx, a claim Moscow has denied. The law permits border guards to turn away asylum seekers in situations deemed to threaten Finland's sovereignty or national security. The Interior Ministry noted that the measures have successfully curbed the influx of migrants, with Interior Minister Mari Rantanen emphasizing the need to remain vigilant against potential rapid changes in the security situation at the 1,300-kilometer border. While the government intends to extend the law, the duration of the extension remains undecided and will be assessed. The law allows for its application in specific border regions for up to 1 month at a time under circumstances that Finland considers a threat. In such cases, only select individuals, such as children or people with disabilities, are eligible to seek asylum. Border guards evaluate those cases, and decisions to deny entry cannot be appealed. The border closure, enacted in December 2023 following the arrival of approximately 1,000 undocumented immigrants, remains in place with no plans for reopening. And that's it for the news this week. We will now move to the next segment.
Yeah, and that would be me. Hello, guys. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine in a very short segment. We start with a new contract the German government has signed for Ukraine. Ukraine will receive 180,000 additional rounds of ammunition for the Gepard and Cheetah Sparks we have delivered, and therefore secure their midterm needs. The deliveries are planned to start in 2026, so already next year. This was made public by Rheinmetall on Monday. To prevent the disruption of essential social services, the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development has co-financed the charging stations through the state-owned investment and development bank, KfW. This was made public by UNICEF Ukraine on Tuesday, which has also delivered the eco-flows to social service centers in the Kharkiv and Sumy regions. On the same day, Rheinmetall CEO Armin Pappberger, has confirmed to the FAZ that the first Lynx IFV has been delivered to Ukraine at the end of 2024 as planned. The IFV will now be trialed in Ukraine before a serious order can be placed. Still, there are no details on how such an order would be financed, at least no concrete details. After all, a corresponding order with a reasonable number of infantry fighting vehicles would cost hundreds of millions of euros or potentially even billions of euros. So yeah, we have to see how this stuff turns out in the end. And I will definitely keep you guys updated. And last but not least, Minister of Defense Boris Pistorius announced on Tuesday at the UDCG meeting that Germany will deliver nearly 50 additional missiles for the delivered IRIS-T systems to Ukraine. They were originally intended for the German Bundeswehr, so for the German army, and are now being redirected from the industry directly to Ukraine. And yeah, that's it for my segment. So back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, sir. So we have an excellent guest today to talk a little bit about some open source research stuff. But last week, Mr. Germany to Ukraine and I mentioned that there was some kind of offensive going on in Kursk. We didn't really understand much about it because we're not GeoInt guys ourselves. But we have someone who has a bit more of a sophisticated, nuanced understanding of what's going on in Kursk here with us today. So I wanted to start with that real quick. Mr. Gesh, could you comment briefly before we start your presentation on the events we vaguely commented on last week in terms of like what happened in Kursk? That there were several like mainstream news stories, I guess you'd say, about like an offensive in Kursk. So if you could just elaborate on that a little bit, thanks.
Okay, hello. I first want to say that I base most of this, what I will explain now, on geolocated footage that was geolocated by mainly two guys, namely Geek and Imi. They have done an immense, great work on this for this counterattack, with basically documenting every day what exactly happened. But yeah, let's start. Okay, on the 5th of January, so basically exactly 1 week ago, we have heard we have seen signs of Ukrainian vehicles advancing in Kursk. And there was a lot of speculation how big this attack was it a Ukrainian offensive, etc., and what it would achieve. We can now say that this attack was likely only company-sized, or maybe a bit bigger than company-sized, so not exactly a very big attack. To give a scale there, basically 3 companies are roughly 1 battalion, and then for Ukrainian units, like 6 battalions are 1 brigade. So it's like really a very, very small attack in that sense. And this attack has initially taken 2 villages in this area, namely Berdin, and I can't find the name of the second one right now, but it's not that important. It's basically right next to Berdin. It's like a few kilometers in. Wait, I can share the screen as well if you want. I think I can maybe show it better that way, if this is okay.
Well, sure. I mean, this is better than, by the way.
Yeah. Wait. Okay, great. I hope the quality is good today. So yeah, there was this attack here. We have seen some destroyed Ukrainian vehicles. I think in total we have seen around 6 or 7 destroyed vehicles, or at most. And we have then seen evidence on the same day, basically, that they have entered Berdin. And the thing is, on the very same day, something else happened, namely on the western part of the front line, a way bigger Russian attack happened. So there's a lot of speculation behind if those 2 attacks were somehow linked. Did the Ukrainians know about the Russian attack and try to subvert some of their focus, so they couldn't fully focus on this? Or did the Russians know about the Ukrainian attack and this is why they attacked it? We don't know this, but the dates of the 2 attacks certainly coincide, so there might be some connection there. And yes, what we have seen afterwards here is the Russians try to move back here, like they committed some forces here, and they're trying to throw the Ukrainian soldiers out. And we are not sure now if Ukraine still has control here, because on the 7th we have seen evidence of a Russian assault. Well, to be honest, I'm quite sure that the Ukrainians aren't there anymore now, because on the 7th we have seen evidence of a Russian attack. The Russians have also shown Ukrainian POWs from the 82nd Ukrainian Brigade. I think it's air assault. And yes, and from the 8th onward, we have basically seen no geolocations anymore from this area at all. And on the 10th, the Russians even managed to advance into Rusko Porechne. So I think it's fair to say now that this attack eventually did not result in land gains for the Ukrainians. And I would even go as far as to say it was a mild failure. It was in no way, shape, or form a very big attack or anything. So attacks like these happen all the time. They succeed, they fail. Like this is war. But yeah, I think it's a big problem that a lot of the info space immediately jumped to completely overhyping this attack, while the only evidence we had were a handful of Ukrainian vehicles moving and nothing bigger. And I think it's very, very important to watch out, to look at the actual evidence, to look what's actually out there and not jumping to conclusions too quickly. But yeah, the two people who did most of the geolocating, there's Imi and Gig. I can highly recommend them if you're into geolocations, etc. If you want to see footage, like where all the footage happens, etc. Yeah.
Also, the mad genius behind the lobby music, Mr. Gick, that we played earlier in the stream. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on and not just to explain that, but just by happenstance explaining that. I think it really added a lot of detail to what we said very vaguely last week. And
Yeah.
as you said, I think it's good to have. I was a bit skeptical about the media reports about this, and so I think it's good that people know that this is something that maybe the media. I wouldn't say they exaggerated or lied, like it happened, but it's not particularly. Like you said, this happens a lot in Ukraine. There's nothing like particular. There's no good reason why this was called a big offensive and reported by the media for etc.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
the real reason we had you on. Oh, go ahead.
No, something more on this. Sorry, one small more thing.
Sure.
We talked about this earlier before. Yeah, in the last days, the Russians also managed to advance a bit in the Kursk region, and this is ever since 1 or 2 months has been the modus operandi there. They're using immense amount of equipment of men to advance. They are managing to advance. You could say it works in that way. But yes, I just wanted to add this detail.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, so I think, but the reason I called you on today, I'll cop to it, is that you made a post this I think yesterday or the day before about Chasiv Yar and what's going on in Chasiv Yar. You outlined the different Russian units that are involved and some other information, and so I wanted you to kind of maybe talk to the audience about that. And I think what we settled on in terms of like what the presentation is about is obviously we'll kind of explain the contents of the information real quick. But I think Gesh has basically said like if you want to know like what the tweet thread or what the report said, you can just go to Twitter and check it out. Right? It's pretty easy to read it yourself. But what we thought would be maybe more useful is to help explain kind of the process behind how such research is done and how it can be considered reliable. So that's kind of the topic of, I think, his discussion is like how methods to collect open source information on Russian military units. And Chasiv Yar is kind of the example. So Mr. Gesh, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks a lot. And yeah, basically, this is what I do with like most of my research is basically doing stuff like this, trying to find out where Russian units are, where they have moved. And recently I've seen a post from a Russian channel that prompted me to go into Chasiv Yar because this channel, Wait, I can show you the post in a second. I mean, it pains me a lot to show a post from these guys, because I don't think there are many worse people out there than Russich. This is a channel from Russich. They're like basically the worst human beings imaginable, but they have given some very interesting information on what's happening in Chasiv Yar itself. And with this information, I then tried to verify it and to see if I could, like, with other means, see if this is the truth, what they write. Because, yeah. So basically, they have said that in the north, in the very north, the 200th Brigade is attacking on the area of the workshop. This is the refractory plant, and one of these buildings is the workshop. And together with the 331st Regiment, that the 217 Airborne Regiment is trying to reach this intersection. And 299th, they didn't mention. And yeah, basically they only mentioned those three units. So this was for me very valuable information, because what I do, I go through a lot of Russian MIA reports. So if a Russian soldier is missing, the relatives write, hey, he is missing, and he's missing. Often they write, he's missing in Chasiv Yar. So I knew that those units were in Chasiv Yar. Like, I've seen plenty of MIA posts from all these units, but I didn't know exactly where they were. And with this information, I then tried to identify the exact positions, or roughly the exact positions. Obviously, this is still some guesswork. I sadly also missed one unit, but I will get to this later. But I tried to get the exact position. So we start with the 200 Motor Rifle Brigade. For this brigade, some additional info. A small part of this brigade is also in Kursk, with basically a tactical group together with the 80th Russian Brigade, so it's not fully committed here. And some months ago, I had an MIA report that one of their soldiers went missing in exactly this village. So I knew already that the area of operation was more in the north of Chasiv Yar. So this was one data point that kind of confirmed that they are pushing into the north. Then some more points. They are one of the main drone units in this area, at least judging from the footage that we have, because we are getting a ton of footage from them. And I also know from the geolocations of this footage that they are also striking a lot of targets more north of Chasiv Yar, and generally in this district and in this area. So this all added up very well, and I felt comfortable enough with this information to place this unit here. Exactly, Kalinivka. Thank you. And then I went further with the 331st Airborne Regiment. I also only had the information that they were fighting in Chasiv Yar. And the thing is, with the 200 Motor Rifle Brigade, as I said earlier, they're not 100% of the manpower is here. So it makes sense that the area of operation isn't too big, especially since they're also stretched a bit north here. Like, it's likely to assume that some of the units are also up here. So it would make sense that then the 331st Airborne Regiment is next to them. Then for the 217th Airborne Regiment, I actually had some very good data point that was posted by Blinska. He did the geolocation on this. And like on the 24th of December, the channel of the 98th Airborne Division, which is the superior unit of the 217 Regiment, posted a strike on Ukrainian positions here, which is exactly the direction that Russich was talking about they're fighting in. I also know from the MIA reports they have been fighting in Chasiv Yar since months. They haven't really gone off the line much, as far as I can tell, because I've seen a constant stream of MIA reports, which are like have basically the same amount every month, which means the how should I word it? their strength of commitment isn't really that different from month to month, which lets me assume that they are like fighting constantly. So yeah, this again, I know they're in Chasiv Yar. They are striking positions in the area, and then I have an additional report that they are trying to push towards here. It adds up again. For the 200, wait, I open this again. 299th. For this, I'm not fully sure if they're down here or up here, to be honest. I can't tell for sure. But I had an MIA report from some time ago, for like I think 2 months, that mentioned that they were still fighting for the channel. The thing is, at that time, the channel in the north was already crossed. So it would have been reasonable to assume that they are still fighting a bit to the south of this. Like here we have it, the post on the 2nd of October. Yeah, they are fighting in the channel area in Seversky Pipe. So, and also the lack of mention of them fighting inside Chasiv Yar from the social media post again reinforces this assumption. So, yeah, exactly. And then for the 4th Motor Rifle Brigade, it was a way easier thing. We are seeing a ton of footage from them. They are posting regularly, and basically all their strikes are between Ivanivske and Chasiv Yar. Like they are constantly striking exactly in this area. And yeah, it was not really hard to decipher that they were the next unit, because the next unit to the south already that I know from this area is already towards, I can show it here as well. We are here in Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar, because the next unit to the south is already Klishivka. This is like area of the 6th Motor Rifle Division. They're fighting all around here. So I knew already they are the next unit near Chasiv Yar. They're south of Chasiv Yar, and they're around the Ivanivske area. I also knew there had to be a unit here, because we have seen footage of Ukrainian strikes there. We have seen footage of Russian strikes there. So there has to be someone fighting here. And with the air, and I assumed that the area of operation for each unit was roughly the same size, especially for the regiments. And so yeah, that's why I think this unit exactly is around here. And something else, I don't know why exactly, but I am very sure that this regiment hasn't been really fully committed, especially between mid-October and mid-December. And again, the way to find stuff like this out is I looked at a huge number of MIA reports. I've looked at the MIA reports from before mid-October. There was like several per month, like 20 or something. And then I looked at the MIA reports since mid-December. I've also seen several since then. Obviously, there's some information delay for this, because a lot of relatives only post after a few weeks after the soldier has gone missing. But I've seen like 3 or 4 or 5 MIA reports since mid-December, which lets me assume that the unit is committed and fighting. But for this time period, I've seen, I think, at most 1 report, and another report that a soldier has been transferred to the 331st Airborne Regiment during the time, which then lets me assume that this unit has maybe been moved backwards for rest and recuperation. Like, yep. And maybe this is also the reason why the Russians haven't really been that successful in the southern Chasiv Yar area, because the unit responsible for it hasn't really been committed to it and not really fighting that heavily. For whatever reason, maybe they have taken so many losses before that they couldn't allow themselves to commit that much more, or they didn't have the necessary manpower to commit much more. And an additional data point for this, I don't have it for this very unit, but it's also often very interesting. The Russian ministry or the Russian oblasts are often posting posts for recruiting. And most of the recruiting posts are also for specific units. And a lot of the time, those specific units that are mentioned there are currently not on the front line because they are in the rear trying to refill their ranks, trying to get soldiers back. And that's why they're putting out recruitment posts. And this is also, I mean, if you put this together with more information, you can then also assume, hey, this unit is currently off the line or not. Yeah, this is basically how I approach this topic. And one thing I sadly missed is generally in the Bakhmut area, there are a huge amount of the Russian PMCs, all the volunteer units, like the whole volunteer unit stuff is something I want to research more because it's very interesting. A lot of it is connected with the Spetsnaz and their recruitment, and they then fill the recruits they get into those volunteer units, and most of those units are fighting especially in this area as well, up here in the north, and they're not that effective as far as I can see. But one of them, the 88th Brigade Española, which is not really brigades, most likely, by the way. A lot of just because it's called a brigade, it's not always a brigade, especially for those volunteer units.
Isn't Española also a particularly horrible unit?
Likely, I haven't really looked into them that much.
It's basically a neo-Nazi, another one.
Another one of them, like Russich.
Yeah, they are horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, can very well be. I mean, why else would you fight this for the Russian? Okay. So yeah, they are also fighting in Chasiv Yar, and sadly, I mean, I had some data points for it, but most of them were some months old. My problem here was that I sadly didn't really look much further into them. Otherwise, I would have realized that they're still in Chasiv Yar. So I sadly missed them in my assessment, and this was one mistake of mine while doing this. And yeah, problem when you do this in a couple of hours instead of a couple of days. So yeah, I wanted to add this as well because you also always have to watch out for your mistakes, for your own mistakes, for the stuff you miss. It's not always only the stuff you see. It's also you also have to consider the stuff you miss. So yeah, this was basically how I approached this research, how other people could approach similar stuff. And if anyone wants more detailed information on how exactly I do some stuff or anything about units, etc., you can always hit me up in Blue Sky or Twitter, whatever. Send me a message there. I'm always happy to talk about it, etc. Yeah.
I have a specific question about Chasiv Yar when you're on the topic. The area around the canal where you mentioned just recently, the Novi. There's not really much presence there the last few weeks, really, as far as I understood. Do you think that anyone really has any control in that area, and also in the parts that are marked as red? As far as I understood, there hasn't been just north of Novi, Shovetny. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Both those areas, is it populated at all, or is it more?
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly about it. Which one was it? Sorry, I'm very bad with numbers sometimes. 217 years. They are fighting there. As I said before, we have seen a strike exactly here on a Ukrainian position, like 1 month ago, and they are trying to push into there. We know they are there. The thing is with this, the 299 has just come back from the rest and recuperation. They are trying to. I think they are trying to fight there, but it's insanely hard to cross such a natural or such an obstacle as this channel. This is a very, very serious obstacle to cross. And this was also what held the Russians back for such a long time there, because any piece of water is insanely hard to cross because you can't really get your vehicles across. Even your soldiers getting across in this cold is very hard. And yeah, we have some...
So what I meant is it really a high presence area, or is it more or less?
I think most of the focus is within Chasiv Yar itself here.
Yeah.
And especially the refractory plant is the main axis of attack right now.
Because I guess what we can assume is that Ukraine's tactic is to kind of strike the Russians as they try to cross because of this natural obstacle, which is helping them still, even if they don't really hold the canal anymore. They still have certain fire control over it, and that makes
Yeah.
any reinforcements really, really difficult. This map doesn't necessarily give it.
Yeah, we
lot
don't
of
know exactly
insight.
who is here. Like this is just the gray zone. Nobody really controls this exactly here, I think,
Yeah.
because the Ukrainians can freely strike it. Like you can't really set up much positions here, I think.
Yeah.
It's very susceptible to attack from both sides, basically.
So
They're not-
Okay.
It's interesting to see like the Ukrainians actually keeping some foothold here a lot longer than what I would have expected. But I guess the canal still being some sort of a natural obstacle is mainly the reason.
Yep. I also think it helped the Ukrainians a lot. Sorry, there was another question.
Yeah, so I guess I have like two questions. The first is I wanted to, because we're trying to give people a little bit of like a how-to here, is like occupational hazards. So I mean, I assume you're going on Telegram, and that's where you're finding most of this information. Is that accurate?
Telegram, VK, all the Russian social media that's out there. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's like one is do you go to those sites at your own risk, people out there who
Oh, yeah.
would be interested in doing this, and take precautions. I don't know, like we could
Especially
probably
VK. VK is dangerous for you. Don't like VK is actually, if you go on VK, you need to don't go there without any with VPN, or it's really, it's a Russian controlled website at all. Like it's dangerous to be on there generally. So yeah, sorry.
So, oh yeah, that's all. I just wanted to make sure people understood. Like it's you're not gonna the Russians aren't gonna reach out of the computer and get you, but you should take precautions and prophylactic measures, as it's called, to protect yourself from weird social media stuff. And then I would say the other occupational hazard is you're gonna see some stuff that you can't unsee if you get involved in this line of work. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yes, I have some very strict rules for myself because I know this is very much a risk. For example, I try to watch as little combat footage as possible, actually, because I know that this is something this is bad for your mental health, very much. And yeah, I mean, mostly when I do this work, I try to scan the posts, etc., for the information, and not really read what's actually written there. I deal a lot with human misery, and being exposed to human misery all the time is also not that healthy for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I just maybe wanted to make people aware of those. I think that those are the two main. I think it would be a bit of an exaggeration to call them hazards, but those are the things you should be careful with when you're doing this line of work. Would you agree?
Yeah, very much. You should be cautious about this. You're right. I should have maybe mentioned it. Yes.
And then I guess my other question was just about like your actual process. So I think you laid out in kind of broad terms what you're doing, but if we get a little bit more granular, like in terms of how you actually organize the information, do you have like a spreadsheet that you put all this on? Do you have like a Charlie wall of like all the conspiracies of, from It's Always Sunny, where he's pointing at the wall with all the yarn, connecting things? Or how do you actually organize the information in such a way that it's like all comprehensible to you?
I am a spreadsheet guy for sure. I have like a ton of different spreadsheets where I track all kind of stuff, and I try to make them interoperable as well. So connecting the units to some of the other stuff, and then the one spreadsheet gets it from the others. Yeah, stuff like that. But I don't really. I definitely won't go into the details there, but yeah, I do it all in spreadsheets, try to collect all the information that's interesting. Yeah.
I gotcha. I mean, it makes sense. I think a lot of the people in your line of work are spreadsheet guys. I would agree. Like nothing quite beats mastering a spreadsheet when it comes to handling data. Have you seen anyone else do it differently, or you think like spreadsheets is the main way people go about doing stuff like this?
I've recently met a guy. He's doing it by memory, and this is actually baffling me. I have no idea how he does it. Like, he's also extremely knowledgeable in on Russian positions and Russian orbit, and when I asked him where he saves it, he just said he remembers it, and this is I don't know how he does it.
Okay, so yeah, that aside from
That's-
one inexplicable superhuman anomaly, it seems like most people do
Yeah.
spreadsheets.
Yeah. I've seen I've basically only seen spreadsheets. I mean,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that's how
Um,
most people do it.
Cool. Does anyone else on the panel have any questions about? I think we're kind of asking generally about like OSINT stuff, like how they make the maps and all that. I think I guess one thing I would say is like the maps are a little bit of like a byproduct, right? Like these guys are mostly working in spreadsheets and then they kind of take the spreadsheets and they get put on a map. Like they're not sitting there all day going like, I'm going to put a pin here. I mean, is that accurate, Erlend?
Yeah, I mean, it's the map is the goal, the end product, and
The
there are
front end.
there's different products like the movement on the front line, the geolocations of events, not just military events but also civil events like responding to emergencies that are connected to some sort of Russian attack or all kind of different events actually is mapped, right? So it's not just movements on the front line. There are a lot of byproducts of this Andrew's first goal to make a map which is as precise as possible. So yeah, spreadsheets and lots of different applications that have been developed by our AI girl is being used in order to sort data and find what is usable for the map. And there's a hell of a lot more data than just the stuff that is being published on the map, but some things are not either useful to publish because you can't geolocate it, or it's just clutter, or there are different reasons, but there's enormous amounts of data and some just isn't interesting, like videos that aren't really showing anything or being duplicates of old stuff, things like that. So there's a lot of lines in the sheets that are never gonna be anywhere, but the map is the end product.
Right. And so I think Mr. Gesh has been very generous with his time. Real quick, does the panel have any other questions or things they wanted to add about this?
Oh, there was a question in the chat.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Like, how do you manage the time? So we'll let you, because I know you have some stuff you got to go do. You can't stick around for the Q&A, so we'll let you wrap up with that question.
Yeah, because
like,
I will actually go. No, sorry.
Just how much time does it take? How do you manage your time? That kind of thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I will actually go monitoring units after this as well. How much time it takes for just monitoring unit stuff, like let's say it's like 6 hours 6 hours a day for just the basic stuff. That it depends if I also want to do some deep dives in specific areas, but just the general maintenance stuff for my research where I want to keep everything up to date, I think it's like 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, it's a lot of time.
Woof. Yeah, I think in generally speaking, I would say, Erlend, I remember when we're looking for guys for the basement. I mean, it's like, I would say a couple of days a week, a couple of hours is like the bare minimum. They would really want more than that, because like it's sort of like you're given a pile of data and it's better to give one person that pile and just say, go through this, because like one person is just able to do it kind of more efficiently. But would you say, Erlend, that's like the floor, the bare minimum is like a few hours, a few days a week?
Yeah, and also right now we've kind of realized that integrating new people is also time consuming, and it's time consuming for the people that have the best ability to actually process the data. So I'm not sure how the new recruitment strategy is going to be, but we definitely need to kind of adjust it, because we had enormous backlog that just piled up the last couple of weeks for various reasons. One being that Ukraine says it's a calm, day. We don't really we have a media stop, but then they publish 260 videos, and it's just like absolutely insane. So
Yeah, I think a big part of the issue, right, is that this content, the amount of videos and information coming out keeps scaling up. There's keeps being more and more of it, exponentially more of it. But that's going to happen no matter what. It's up to us humans doing this for free to, I'm not doing it. Those guys to, do the hard work and like actually figure out how to scale it. And it's very difficult to scale this along with the amount of stuff that keeps coming in. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough work. Mr. Gesh, we really appreciate you coming on and explaining how all this stuff is done. Is there anything else you want to maybe parting words for the audience in terms of like this type of work, why you do it? Like, do you think other people should get into it? Because I think there's a lot of information that doesn't get covered because no one's doing it. Would you agree?
Yes, certainly. There's so much information out there, so much a few months ago, I didn't know anything about or any of this. Basically, I didn't really know how big a regiment, what a regiment even was really. And another thing that I want to, there's so much information out there, so much freely available that's just sitting there. Nobody's really collecting and connecting it, because the connection is also like mostly the interesting part, like connecting all the dots, putting it all together, and then realizing something. And I mean, the reason why I'm doing it, this is I want to try to present the most accurate information possible. I want to educate people or show people what's happening exactly, what's going on. If a person wants to see what's going on, he should be able to access it easily. But another thing, if you get into this line of work, I have to say there are no weekends, there are no holidays. I had my first real holiday over Christmas, and let's say it like this: the days before and the days after, they were very interesting. I I basically woke up, sat at my PC, and then went to bed again. This were because I tried to I took a holiday. I knew I knew what would happen with it, how much backlog and everything I would have. But this is, I mean, you don't have to go into this that deep. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are doing it beside like doing a lot of other things as well. But yep, it's sometimes very, very time-consuming work. But it's also, for me at least, very fulfilling work, because I'm actually creating something. I'm actually contributing something, and not just That's what I wanted to say.
So one thing I would like to say is that if you're interested in doing this kind of work, then do it like Gesh and Artem and Soam, for instance, that came in this last year to the scene and kind of chose their niche, because then you can dive into something that you can follow in time, and not necessarily just breaking down videos from wherever where it comes from, and without necessarily any specific goal for yourself. If this is something you really want to contribute to, then starting to learn about a specific topic that you think is either interesting or very important, and exploring that sphere, and maybe find a way to follow one specific subject, like these three people have done. That definitely contributes more to the OSINT community, and also I think it's more giving.
Yeah, for sure.
It does, come with the caveats that you don't have any free time, but that's another topic.
No, you don't have to do it like that. You don't they're obviously always. I chose it. I chose to invest that much time into it. It's my it's a trial for myself. I wanted to try it, and yeah, this is not something I'm forced to do, but I want to do.
Of course, it's an accomplishment as well. Like when you can see the results of the research, and then that's giving, and it makes people motivated. And I see that the people that did this kind of choice, dive into one specific topic, it seems to be thriving a lot more in whatever they do. So yeah, if you're interested, contact one of the people in the team or us directly. But I do want to say that we really look for people that are interested in either diving into one specific topic or have some knowledge already, because right now it's almost impossible for the team to integrate new people.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like before it was basically just Andrew and Gick doing it, and it was like if you added one person, you added so much extra like labor to the pool. But with now that there's like a decent number of people, it's not a huge number, but it's bigger than two, like adding one new person slows everything down a little bit, and it doesn't have the same like percentage of benefit, right, overall. So I think that's the bottleneck we're running into now. But I think, like as Erlend was saying, if you're really dedicated, I think there's definitely room for new people. It's just a question of like this is kind of a new ground, having a way to organize it all into one cohesive organization where it's no one's doing redundant work and everything's kind of efficient, so that the sheer volume of data can be processed. But yeah, I think we probably got to let Gesh go. But any last words, Gesh?
I think I've said most of the things, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, if
How about
you
cleaning?
guys could.
Have a good one.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions about, I guess, this thread or just the presentation, you can reach out to Gesh on Twitter or Blue Sky. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm volunteering him without his knowledge or consent. And yeah, thanks again to Mr. Gesh. I know he's got somewhere he's got to go to do track some more Russians, so we'll let him go do that. I don't think we have like a lot of Q&A stuff today. We do have a question from Mr. Marino there, so we can wax on this a little bit. I'll hand that one over to Erlend because I think he's probably the most qualified, unless Mr. Erlend.
Well, I mean, the best qualified person to answer this question would probably be Constanze and Andrew and Gick, but I guess more money to the to be able to pay for more services is probably where the need would be. Even though we have services that are quite good, I guess having even better capacity, RAM, processor power, etc., would be good. But
so like Erlend, so just to be more specific here, they have to pay for satellite stuff, right? And they have to pay, you're talking about like servers for AI or what?
The servers for computing power, yeah. It's not just used for AI, but
oh, right, for the map.
Video hosting. No, for the analysis.
Okay, so to have, like, you're saying to have a central database for all the videos, that takes infrastructure?
Yes, and we have some, but it's I can't really go into the details of how it's done, also because I'm not one of the people who actually developed it. But as far as I understand, having more computing power wouldn't hurt, and it costs money, and it's really, really freaking expensive.
Right. So I think those are probably the main tools that could really enhance some of the work, right? Would be like a really robust like network that can store all the videos and all the databases and integrate everything. I think if we had unlimited money, like there's certain satellite stuff we could do that would really improve things. And then was there another tool?
Like having like hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to spend on satellite imagery would probably help anyone in this field. Like that's It's very expensive.
Yeah, the satellite. I mean, I remember talking. We were talking to Andrew about it a little bit, and it was like, it was that satellite stuff was very expensive and difficult. Definitely a huge hurdle in terms of getting good information. I would say one of the main hurdles to getting into GeoInt is like getting approved and paying for the satellite stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know. We definitely, there's other tools being experimented with. But like, I think it's really, I don't want to say a new field. Like this field has definitely existed for a little while, but the idea of like trying to do it just like with a bunch of people, a bunch of strangers over the internet, and like having a comprehensive system to not just do like one news story or one like little project, but like I'm going to track the war, right? Like I don't think that's really been done. It probably has, like, every time on the internet you say this has never been done before, it has. But the point is, all this stuff is relatively new. So I think like new software tools need to be made to do this. So I think that's a lot of it too. As Erlend said, he can't get into specifics, but like a lot of it is just like they're trying to like build a thing, and they're like, well, we need, in order to make this database we can all use efficiently, we have to make a piece of software that lets us interact with it, right? So yeah, like there's a lot of very like specialized software tools that can make the workflow more efficient and the connections between the groups more efficient, I think. But yeah, so I think those are the three I can think of: satellite stuff, computing power, and just like storage space and all that stuff, like raw computing hardware resources, and like software know-how, and the ability to make custom software that can do stuff that you need it to do for these like large scale tasks. Anything else,
Yeah.
Erlen?
Yeah, I mean that's good. That's a good explanation. And it's not like we don't have people that are capable of developing it. It's more like, we have certain limits to what we can do with the money and resources that is available, and also the time of the people that are doing the actual research needs to be involved in the development. So that limits the capacity of the or the progress of development as well, because it takes time from the analysts, because you need to try stuff out. Maybe it fails, then you get a setback, because we're doing it live. It's not like we are developing a software and then the war starts and we start applying the software. That's a real issue that is very challenging.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely agree. Like there's some improvements that could be made in terms of the infrastructure here, but like the level of detail that you get when you actually put the legwork in is pretty insane. And it kind of baffles me, like governments aren't putting more resources into this. Like, I don't know, like I could definitely be wrong. There could be a whole department in the Pentagon where they're sitting with little pins on a table and like doing exactly what we're doing, but like 10 times better because they have access to all this secret squirrel information. But like, I don't know. We talk to guys who know the secret government secrets, and nothing they tell us indicates that they're doing this or that they know the things that they would know from doing this. So I don't think it's happening like anywhere in secret. And so if everyone who's doing it is doing it out in public, like this is probably the most comprehensive work being done on the topic. So yeah, I don't know, like hats off to these guys. Like, I don't know, it's somewhat of a thankless job, and it's very involved and difficult work. So I don't know, my hats off to everyone involved for doing all this stuff, and especially like our friends at the basement. I think they work really hard and do great work.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So unless there's any other stuff in chat you wanted to talk about, Mr. Erlend, I think we can probably start wrapping it up.
I mean, there was a question which is very interesting. I'm not able to necessarily go into the super details about this, but if I understand the question accurately, the question is about how Russia was able to break out of the choke point into Kherson at the start of the war. Well, there's been a lot of public writing about this, and as far as I understand, there were at least accusations. I'm not sure if anyone were actually convicted, but I do even think they basically arrested a general or something for not blowing up the bridge and also mobilizing the regional National Guard when the invasion actually happened. So there's at least some theories about inside job or a general that somehow didn't mobilize the regional defense. But I'm not sure if I don't know if there was actually any legal consequences. So I don't remember the fate of that specific individual that was accused of this.
Yeah, like I would say every Ukrainian I've asked about this would say it was like a betrayal, basically. Somehow the Russians managed to corrupt that general, and the general didn't take appropriate action to like put a stop to the Russians in the same way that they did in a lot of other parts of the front, where they actually managed to stop them, very well, like far beyond expectations. Yeah, so I think if you ask Ukrainians on the street, they definitely will say it was a betrayal. As Erlend said, I don't know for sure that there was ever proven, but at the very least, I think you could say that there was like a level of incompetence or a lack of getting things done that should have been done. As he said, they didn't blow up the bridges, and also the mobilization was very haphazard. I can speak to the fact that I interviewed a long time ago, like someone who their brother, it was a woman whose brother was like, a resident in Kherson and had been captured by the Russians. And it was like a lot of other places in Ukraine, there was like lines out the door at the recruitment offices, and they were just handing people AK-47s and like saying, go protect. Like, the first days were chaos, right? And it sounds like in Kherson, there wasn't an organized response that was properly managed. I think also, like, this is just speculation, but I don't know. I remember like there was a lot of equipment they should have moved back, right? Like, I don't know. There was a lot of things that should have been, there were a lot of precautions that should have been taken that were taken in other places that weren't taken in Kherson. And it's something that Ukrainians feel was a big mismanagement. At a minimum, it was mismanaged, and at a maximum, it was some kind of a conspiracy or a betrayal.
Yeah, and the Russians tried, of course, to take Mykolaiv very early. That failed because of the fact that they actually mobilized, and a lot of people in basically just civilian clothes and who got distributed weapons stopped them in their advance towards Mykolaiv. So that whole operation was kind of based upon the fact that Kherson would just fold and Mykolaiv would fold, and then they would create this whole land bridge to Odessa. That was kind of the main plan, which failed miserably. But yeah, there's a lot of Ukrainians that are very mad about the fact that they didn't stop them earlier, because of course Russia being able to occupy this territory and all the way through Zaporizhia is still a huge problem for Ukraine. If the front lines were going here or somewhere in the middle here, it would be a lot more difficult for Russia to continue the operations. So that's not a topic I dived incredibly deep into, but there's definitely a lot of writing about this already.
Yeah, and also I think the governor of Mykolaiv has a reputation. Like the governors take a very specific kind of military role in this whole thing in Ukraine, and having a governor like the guy in Mykolaiv who just seemed to have just an aptitude for this, right? Like, I'll put it this way: most governors in different regions probably don't have like they're elected to like run schools and like run hospitals, but there's probably a few that are just for some reason, specially suited to this type of, high pressure wartime situation where they need to like build fortifications and like, shoot down drones and stuff like that. Things that governors don't normally need to do in Ukraine. And, having a governor who's uniquely suited to those particular skill sets, I think helps a lot. And I think the governor of Mykolaiv seem to have a reputation as being particularly a good organizer and a good having a good plan to deal with what was going on. So I think that's part of it too, is probably civilian leadership matters a lot in terms of an area's ability to actively resist what's going on.
Yep. And, to various degree, this was very successful in some areas and not so successful in other areas. In the Sumy regions, for instance, it was very successful. I don't know if you remember the initial invasion that stretched out different along different routes towards Kyiv. In Chernihiv, it was incredibly successful. They set up a defense perimeter around the city, and the Russians got really caught with their pants down here because they were cut off in large areas because of this. So there are different stories about the initial invasion, and the defense of Kyiv was kind of a prime example of how it was good organized, and then Kherson is probably a story which is kind of on the negative side of things when it comes to the combination of civilians organizing and military readiness, and also obeying orders, because apparently a lot of things went really bad in the defense of Kherson. But yeah, this you will find a lot of writing about this and analysis being made. I'm not the right guy to go into the details of this.
Yeah. Any more questions, or close it out? Oh, we got Mr. Daniela here. Hello, Mr. Daniela. Is there anything? I think we're getting close to. We're out of questions, I think. So, is there anything you wanted to present this week? You have a new article out on the website. Is that right?
Oh, but that good evening to everyone. That article is not only mine. I mean, in reality, it's mostly a collaborative work. I've done very much low on that, honestly.
Yeah,
okay, I wanted to get on the way out the door, but now that he's here, go ahead, Erlend.
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up, but this article has been in the works since the collapse of the Assad regime was starting to happen. It actually, this article was begun, like the work for this article began a lot before, actually. And then when Assad regime collapsed completely and the Russian pullout was kind of a fact, and still happening, by the way, then yeah, the fundamentals of this article was laid. So it's basically Russian losses in Syria, both personnel and equipment. And if you're interested in this, then it's very long and very detailed. Do you have anything more to say about that, Daniela?
Oh yeah, the part that I really loved about this article is the connection with Africa and the implication also on the war in Ukraine. But essentially, it's a broad view on the presence of Russian influence in the Mediterranean, in the southern, and if you think about that, also on southern Europe, which at the moment has been one of the areas less effective in their support in Ukraine. So I think this article alone offer a very interesting view of why the events that unfolded so quickly in Syria can have their own impact in Ukraine and also in Europe in terms of security.
As you can see, the article contains a lot of data collected from various sources. Yeah, it's if you're interested in this part of the global conflict, basically, that Russia has instigated through the last 10-15 years, then this is a piece of the puzzle. And it's a lot of sources, as you see. So, yeah, very comprehensive article. And thanks to everyone that has contributed to this. It's I think this is kind of the stuff that we will expect also coming out more from the Tochnyi team in writing, but these things take a long time, so please be patient for new articles.
Are we? Because I know Daniela said he had a relatively small role in this, or he was being humble, I'm sure. But my point is, someone else worked on this. Can we say who or no?
It's a Tochnyi team collaborative article.
Okay, so just a bunch of people worked on it.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on the website that's kind of new in the last week or 2 weeks, Erlend, that we should cover for the good people?
Not really. This was the one before, and it's already more than a month old. So
it's a good looking website, guys. I highly recommend you head on over to tochny.info and check it out. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and close out the stream then. So thank you everyone for tuning in this week. I think it was a good panel. Thanks so much, of course, to our guest Gesh for coming in, talking a little bit about his work and how he goes about doing it. Really detailed information we got from him there. Thanks to our usual panel, to my colleague Mr. Erlend, to Mr. Germinate to Ukraine, to Mr. Daniela. For stopping by and asking questions and talking to Mr. Gesh, and also for presenting all the information they do. And thanks, of course, to our live audience. We always appreciate you guys when you have questions and interact with us. We like that. We I don't know. We thrive a bit on your participation. So thanks for tuning in live with us and experiencing the stream as it happens, and we can interact with you. But of course, we know that not everyone can do that. Not everyone has time at 2100 Kyiv every Sunday, 2100 Kyiv, to tune into our stream. So if you do, you can always check out the video on demand. So thank you to the people who watched the video. Thanks for liking and subscribing and all that. Follow us on the social medias. We'll see everyone next time. Next week. Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
Heroям слава.
On behalf of the brave.